Hey folks, quick update on the rusty T4 and some of the progress that I've made so far. As you can see, passenger side, rear quarter, rear arch panel is now welded in. However, it really was not just as easy as that. I had to basically rebuild this entire lower corner out to here, where it joins into the chassis leg. I had to then sort of patch up this area here as well, fit the entire inner arch, a little brace in here onto the side of that sort of bracket, and then of course fit the quarter itself. So to start with, got the tailgate up in the air, got the bumper off, got the lights off, started stripping things down, took all the wiring loom out, then cut the old quarter off. As I mentioned before, these were repaired previously. You can see the joins here in the back side of them. Now obviously I've cut out the old inner arch as well. It actually wasn't too bad. It was going around the edges where it would need to join on to the arch of the old panel. But where it was also going quite bad is where it sort of butted up in this corner here. It was completely detached from there, and this bit in here was totally rotten. So what I've done, just to regain a bit of strength, was totally cut the inner arch out. And this bit here was quite rotten as well, so I never had a good lip to weld the inner arch to. So I've cut this bit out and I've put in a nice big thick bit of plate, and that's welded onto the sort of suspension arm mounting point, which was totally solid, nice thick metal to weld to. So that gave me a good lip to get the inner arch welded to it. And then you can see I've just kind of joined it in there, and what was left with the rest of the lip. The rest of it is welded from the inside of the van. So looking at it from the inside, obviously I welded it down in there on the other side. But from there I've just seam welded it, or stitched it, however you want to call it, right along the top there. And as I say, I had to cut this bracing out, so I've just welded a little bit of metal in there just to brace it back together. And then those stitch welds just run right down to the bottom there. At this point there was still quite a lot of work to do before the quarter itself could go on. Mainly around this corner here, you'll see a bunch of my spot welds. So I've basically had to rebuild this entire chassis structural section, as you can see. So the first bit I put in was this sort of box section, sort of bit I made up. I've put some swaged holes in it for strength. And that welds up to the existing chassis legs along the bottom here. And it has a hole obviously for the bumper crash bar to come through. It also ties up to this chassis leg here, which was nice and solid on both sides. And it comes out to here where it's sort of butted up to the inside sort of structure of the van. I've then welded in this plate here, which is that sort of flat corner piece that usually rots out. And that's stitch welded to the chassis there as well. So then these little plug welds that you see here, this is the existing metal, or what was left of it, and that's just plug welded to that box section bit that I made up. Then the final bit before I could get the quarter on is this panel here. So I've used a nice thick metal, I think it's like 1.6 mil or something, nice and strong, and that is welded to the end of that box section bit, and it's also welded right along in here to this floor pan section that comes up because there was quite a bit of rot on this inner tub, and that completes that, so that's nice and solid. Now these repair panels are actually quite a good fit, I would say. There was a little bit of fettling just cutting little bits here and there. You can just see some of the welds in there. And where I've joined it is basically right just above the swage along here. You'll see from the inside, just that lip there. So what I've done with the quarter, you'll see a slight step. I've used like a jodler or a joggler tool. I forget what they're called, but basically it's the tool that works off the air compressor, and you just work your way along the panel. It just puts a little step in it so that when the two of them butt up together, they sit a bit more flush and it doesn't warp the panel so much. So along the bottom here, it's plug welded. It's plug welded up here as well. I put a little stitch here and it's plug welded right the way up. Welded in here, welded along here, and then it's welded right along to the back side here. Plug welded along, a little bit in here to fill a tiny gap. Plug welded right down, and of course plug welded along that panel that I mentioned. Plug welded around the arches. So, and then on these intersections, I have seen some people plug weld these tabs, but actually they're just glued from the factory like this. So you can't really see it, but there's some, it's actually BMW panel adhesive in the backs of these. And that stuff is super strong. Once it dries and it cures, it's super, super strong. So that's that. Everything's coated in epoxy primer, just to protect the bare steel. And then at some point, I'll totally cover this seam and any other seams up in the arch where the two of them meet there. It will just get totally coated in seam sealer and some kind of under seal or something. But we'll come to that when we come to it. So yep, just the other side to do now, which has been welded in the exact same place. You can see the panel here. And that comes along down there, and then it's just completely rotted out. That entire corner, this bit here, underneath as well. I'm gonna have to rebuild that entire section, I think. Even down in behind there. I've not got very good metal to weld to, but we'll see. We'll get it all fixed. So yeah, progress on other fronts. Basically starting at this side, I'm kind of working my way along. So as you can see, basically all the floor, or the back side of the floor has been cut out. That's because it was absolutely rotten. Just nothing good to weld to, so better to just cut it all out. And I've got the fresh one here. Might need another one. Might get away with just this one, I'm not too sure. So yeah, the plan here basically is just to get this chassis nice and solid, repair what needs to be repaired. For example, these, don't know what you call them, spring hanger plates. This one was really badly pitted. So likely going to have to replace this one. I think though, I'll get away with this one. It's quite nice and solid. There was a cross member in here that I had to cut out. It was totally rotten. So I've just welded in some fairly beefy box section. So that's nice and solid. Repaired the chassis a bit down here. So there was a slightly rotten section here with a couple of holes developing. So not what you want on the chassis. So fixed that up and welded another sort of lip section in here. I've done the same at this side, just the lip section at this side. While all that was going on, I had the crash bar fitted at the back. I managed to source a decent crash bar locally, so I bolted that up just to sort of brace everything as it was sort of cutting and welding. So yep, just that bit to replace. There's some quite sort of crusty parts in the corner of that wheel tub. I've cleaned this lip right back, so I've got good metal to weld to. So once I've made those repairs, it'll just be a case of welding in some flooring and plug welding it to any chassis points that I can. But the chassis otherwise is quite solid. The suspension arm mounting points, they're pretty good. I've also managed to get a hold of basically an entire front subframe setup. So the hubs, brand new discs, brand new refurbished calipers, the drive shafts, the steering rack's in good condition. The subframe itself is in really good condition. It's got all the control arms and stuff, the torsion bars. So basically I'll clean all this up, epoxy prime it or some kind of protection stuff, give it all a quick lick of paint, put some new bushes in, and then basically I'll have a nice fresh front subframe setup, and I can just do a complete drop of that one because that is all just rusty, knackered, and then I'll have the fresh subframe ready to go on. And finally I've also managed to source a sliding door. So this one's in much better nick than what I've got. I was cleaning it back at the bottom, it just needs a little patch on the sill area here. So yeah, overall things are going in the right direction. Obviously a hell of a lot of welding still to do, but I'm keen to get stuck in and get going with it. Need to get some more welding gas as well, running low on that. But that's it for this one, folks. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next update. Cheers.